Hello, welcome to California in Focus. I'm Dave Mason, the Southwest editor with the Center Square. I'm here with our California reporter, Kenneth Strupp, and Kenneth recently reported on this $2 billion bailout that the city of Los Angeles is requesting from the state of California, which has its own financial problems. Kenneth, what can you tell us about this?
Hey Dave, that's right. This is on top of 2.5 billion that has already been passed by the legislature and approved by the governor. So in total, we're looking at nearly over $4 billion of aid for Los Angeles alone. The issue here isn't that there is spending for disaster-related issues, but rather that this appears to be a bailout for LA's own poor management of its finances, is using the fire as an excuse to try to get money from the state, which in turn is trying to get a bailout from the federal government and the American taxpayer. When we look more closely at some of these programs, we do see some sort of ridiculous issues here. Let's look back first, though, at the $1 billion deficit that the city has. This is all pre-fire issues that we're seeing here. The City Controller Kenneth Mejia has been talking about this since mid last year. So this is very much a pre-fire problem. The mayor's adopted budget used the most optimistic possible revenue projections as their spending baseline. That money did not come in. On top of that, departments spent significantly more money than was budgeted. And on top of that, there are lawsuit liability payments that have also come in at hundreds of millions of dollars more than expected. So all in all, this leaves the city with about $1 billion shortfall. This predated the fires, and the actual amount of money that is being requested from the state seems to reflect that there hasn't been a huge amount of revenue loss anticipated for just the city government itself. I believe there's only $38 million requested for replacing lost revenue. The rest of that bailout goes towards a lot of interesting things. Let's say interesting because they could be possibly concerning. Let's see that about half of the money is just for upgrading the power grid in the Pacific Palisades. This isn't viewed as a fire-related, as a power-related fire. But is this really the right time to do this? Who knows? There are some other spending in that package for upgrading the city's traffic light smart grid to manage traffic flows. Not really sure if that's fire related. There's about $600 million, I believe, for just maintaining live payouts for city lawsuits that they've lost, and keeping the lights on for city services. Included in that $638 million is, again, $200 million for those lawsuits, $150 million for just reaching statutorily required reserves for the budget at the start of each year. Like, why do they not have that money? It's because they spend like a sailor. There's another $250 million for street, sidewalk, and street light improvements. Again, why is that part of a fire bailout package? This just seems like a grab bag of largely unrelated issues that the city has neglected through its own mismanagement.
Do you think it's likely that they will get this money from the state, or does it seem likely? What's been the state's response so far?
Given that the mayor herself came and that there's a letter signed by, I believe, all of the members of the Los Angeles delegation to the state assembly, probably most of it's going to pass. This is a state with a $323 billion budget. This is just pocket change for them.
So what else can you tell us about this, Kenneth?
There is some interesting provisions here that do raise some eyebrows. Number one is there's a $75.5 million request for the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services to expedite processing of FEMA assistance from previous emergencies, including COVID-19. What that's telling us is that we have lots of more money available for disaster-related issues that we can't unlock because there's too much paperwork that has to be filled out. And if this is COVID-19 funding, wasn't that like 5 years ago? So we've been sitting on money already allocated to us that we can't unlock because we don't have enough bureaucrat hours in California, which has the most state employees it's ever had per capita. And we need to spend $75.5 million more dollars to just unlock that money that's already ours to fill out more paperwork. I don't know. Some other issues that we should look into for this budget. There's $40 million for repairing that reservoir that was supposed to provide water to the Pacific Palisades in the case of a fire. We've covered this before, where that reservoir, it was left empty because it needed repairs to the plastic cover that goes on top to keep the water inside drinkable. Again, this was a firefighting reservoir. It wasn't really, so it doesn't really make sense as to why this needs to be drinkable water. And it doesn't really also make sense why the LA Department of Water and Power, which oversees the reservoir, doesn't have the money to do that and hasn't invested the capital in maintaining basic infrastructure, especially with the rates that a lot of people are paying for their water.
Well, I think the bailout does raise a lot of interesting questions with the answers are not going to be coming easily.
Yeah, and there's one more thing I want to add, and
Sure.
the governor's executive order extending the financial and ethical reporting disclosure deadlines for officials in LA County as this billions and billions of dollars of aid is pouring in, contracts are being awarded, decisions are being made. This raises serious questions. People are getting a 2-month extension on their ethics reporting deadlines for behested payments or conflicts of interest as all this money is coming in. That's bad, because a behested payment is when you direct someone to give money to a certain organization or a nonprofit in return for essentially some kind of quid pro quo. We do have legalized corruption. It's called the behested payments. And you can, as long as you actually fill out the paperwork, it's not illegal bribery or corruption. Very often your political allies, maybe your family and your friends, will work at the nonprofits in question. The conflict of interest disclosure is being delayed, also a problem. We don't know what's going to be lost once we're only reviewing these disclosures 60 days later than we otherwise would have.
Well, this is a very complex story.
And we'll be monitoring for more updates for you guys in the weeks to come.
That's California Focus. I'm Dave Mason here with Kenneth Trump. For more news, please go to thecentersquare.com.